All right, welcome back, guys. We are not going to be talking about pseudostates in this video. We're going to be doing that in the next video, and the reason is because we're going to start. We're going to be talking about text shadow, and that's the final text property that I think we need to focus on here. So let's go ahead, and we're going to be applying this rule to the body element and all inherited elements. So any child element of the body is going to get a text shadow as well. And as you can guess, it's a two-word property, so it's separated by a dash. Text dash shadow. And now this is going to take a possible 4 values that you pass in. The first is the direction vertically, so let's say 2 pixels. The second is going to be the distance from the text horizontally. The third one can be a color. Let's save it and refresh. Sorry, the first property is left and right. I think I said that one was up and down. So what we're going to be doing here is, that looks all right, but the text shadow is not spread at all. It's exactly the same weight and thickness. So what we're going to do is add a spread here, and we're going to set that to 5 pixels as well, and it's going to blur the text shadow and make it actually look like a shadow. And that's good. We can set the previous 2 properties, the first 2, with a negative sign. That's going to move it in the opposite direction. So this one, this defines the gravity of the direction, I guess, or the anti-gravity, because it's the opposite. 2 pixels set as the first property means 2 pixels to the right of the text. Negative 5 pixels means negative 5 pixels down, right? So that would obviously be 5 pixels up, and that's what's happened here. Now I'm going to set these a little more conservatively to both 2 pixels and refresh. That looks a little better. And the spread, I'm going to set that to 10 pixels just to spread it out a bit more. Actually, no, what I'm going to do is set these to 1 pixel, and then the spread is going to be 2 pixels. We're going to go really conservative with this. And what you'll notice is the higher you set the spread, the more it actually spreads it and lightens it. You'll see here, it's a light gray, but if we only use a 2 pixel spread, it's going to be all condensed into those 2 pixels. So what we're going to do is we're going to set the color using RGBA. And that way we can add alpha to it as well. And the reason we would do this is because we could totally set this to a light gray color. So, I mean, that's too light. Let's set it to DDD. Still a bit too light. Let's set it to AAA. There we go. We can kind of see that now. But what's going to happen, this works on a white background because the text shadow is between the text color and the background. It looks like the background is just darkened a little bit. And actually, I'm going to set this quite low so we can see it a little better. But what happens, let's say I set the articles with a background of red. What happens is the text shadow doesn't account for that really, and it's still dark. If I set this down to 0, 0, 0, you're going to see that. Now, setting the property that way would work over here, and it's really noticeable when we just remove the spread altogether. It's still black rather than just a darkened version. I mean, it's hard to see what I mean, but you guys will encounter instances where you see this. So what I'm going to do is we're going to set this with an RGBA color. I'm going to set it to 0, 0, 0, and then 0.3. Save it and refresh, and there is our text shadow. That looks a bit better on all different colored backgrounds. So let me get that out of there. And along the same lines, are box shadows. So a box shadow is kind of used in the same way to a text shadow, but it's intended for elements that aren't text, I guess. Not the internal content, but rather the external content or the element itself. So we're going to set that on the articles, and we're going to set box-shadow using the same properties. The only difference is this one can actually use, it can have a maximum of 5 values instead of just 4. So the first one is going to be the left-right direction. So let's say 5 pixels, 5 pixels vertically, and a 5-pixel spread. And then we're going to set the color again to RGBA. Set that to 6 actually. And then we're going to end that line with a semicolon and refresh. And there's our text shadow. Or there's our box shadow, rather. Now, what you can do is you can set this value very low, and it's going to make it less spread, obviously. Or you can set it very high. That's not very high, but that's a bit higher. And you can make it a bigger, softer shadow. I guess soft is the term I should be using. But what if you want the spread that high and you want it still very dense? What you can do is set a 4th property, which is also in pixels, and this changes the density of the shadow. So if we now set this to 2 pixels, the 3rd property rather, to 2 pixels, this controls how far the shadow outreaches, while this is the, I guess, the softness. So let's set that back to 20. This back to, let's set it to -1. Let's refresh, and there. We've got box shadows that look all right. Now, this is when the RGBA color for this is going to make sense. I'm going to set this to 0.2. And we've got a very light hint of shadow there. I'm going to increase that to 0.3 actually. Look a bit better. There you go. Now in the next video talking about pseudostates, this is going to become really relevant because we're going to be mixing pseudostates with these box shadows.